The Anvil Empires developers recently conducted their first test featuring a win condition. Until now, tests had focused solely on experimenting with new mechanics or exploring different areas of the game. However, this time, players engaged in a battle for territory, striving to claim victory in the first pre-alpha Anvil Empires war. For this test, the developers limited the battlefield to a small section of the map, where the two factions clashed on a confined island. At the start of the war, each faction was given 3 bases. The Remnants had these 3 northern locations, while the Ancients occupied these 3 bases to the south. For the first day of the war, the Remnants launched an initial raiding party, but their first attack ultimately failed. It was clear right away that they would need a much stronger effort if they hoped to claim victory. For the rest of the first day of the war, both factions refrained from engaging. Instead, they focused on fortifying their bases and ramping up production to support the future battles. On the second day of the war, the ancient clan CDC established a forward homestead near the island's center, while Clan 211 set up a siege camp in the mountains. As the Ancients expanded, the Remnants counterattacked in an attempt to push them back. In response, the Remnant clan, the Old Guard, built their own homestead and siege camp, clashing themselves against the ancient clans in the center of the map. This back and forth battle that would last hours would become known as the Battle for Waterloo. Later that evening, the Remnants launched an offensive from the west, pushing south to assault ancient homesteads. After destroying several, they shifted their focus to the ancient keep. At the same time, another remnant force advanced through the center of the island, targeting the second ancient keep. With the Western force armed with siege equipment, they attempted to breach the keep, but they were ultimately repelled, forcing them to retreat. On day 3 of the war, light skirmishes broke out in the middle of the island, with the remnants gradually pushing the ancients back towards their keep. Meanwhile, remnants in the west focused on bolstering production in preparation for another raid of the southwestern ancient base. On the eastern front, several remnant clans launched boat raids, attempting to surprise the ancients from behind. However, the ancients spotted them and countered with their own naval forces. As this unfolded, the Old Guard, who had established a siege camp in the west, abandoned their position to assist in defending against the naval assault. They successfully repelled the ancients and then returned to the west to resume their siege. The western siege lasted nearly the entire day. After relentless pressure, the remnants breached the keep's walls, scaled them using ladders, and stormed the stronghold. The ancients were ultimately forced out, marking the first keep capture of the war. The remnants then swept the surrounding area, destroying any remaining homesteads and small camps. On the 4th day of the war, early in the morning, a remnant raiding party attacked the middle ancient keep. Though unable to breach its defenses, they raided the surrounding homesteads. It was reported that they slaughtered over 100 chickens, and this became what is known as the Chicken Raid. This attack also resulted in the destruction of a major homestead, dealing a severe blow to the ancients' food supply. Later that day, both factions clashed along a river in a prolonged battle that lasted over 8 hours. Strangely, neither side gained any territory from this engagement. On the 5th day, the ancients launched several raids in the west in an attempt to reclaim lost territory. Aside from these raids, the day saw no major battles. On the 6th day of the war, a major turning point occurred, when an Old Guard remnant soldier discovered a hidden cave leading directly into ancient territory. Seizing this opportunity, the remnants moved through the caves while a small force advanced overland, bringing supplies by caravans. Emerging from the underground, they launched a surprise attack in the heart of the ancient territory. The ancients quickly rallied and grabbed all their swords and shields and met the remnants for battle. Though momentarily pushed back, the remnants regrouped and established a siege camp. After this, they began a wave of homestead raids. Next, the remnants turned their attention to the ancient keep. With torches and flasks and battering rams, they assaulted the ancient walls. After a prolonged and grueling siege, they managed to breach the defenses. However, the ancients still held their ground, eventually gaining the upper hand and forcing the remnants to retreat. Undeterred, the remnants maintained pressure throughout the night, ensuring that the battle remained far from over. On the final day of the war, the developers announced that no official winner would be declared since both factions still had keeps standing. The remnants were unwilling to accept these results. Several remnant clans launched a final decisive campaign that evening, gathering all the remaining supplies, equipment, weapons, food, armor, and materials they could muster. They marched towards the last ancient keeps. An advanced scouting party had identified a weak point in the defenses. After setting up camp and forming battle lines, the remnants followed their scout to an ancient wall. Using flasks and torches, they tore through the weakened section, creating an opening. Remnant soldiers flooded through, only to find themselves caught in a brutal kill zone. Ancient archers, spearmen, and javelin throwers inflicted heavy casualties, but remnant archers returned fire, thinning the ranks of the defenders. The remnants shifted their focus towards the gate. Ancient defenders were there waiting for them and formed a shield wall. They held their ground with swords and sheer determination. A bloodbath ensued with heavy losses on both sides. Eventually, the ancient shield wall collapsed, and the remnants surged into the central keep. The battle was over. The remnants had taken the stronghold. With their victory secured, the remnants immediately turned their attention to the final keep in the east. Scouts were dispatched while troops prepared for another siege, and a massive train of supply carts and soldiers mobilized for the final assault. Arriving at a suitable siege location, they constructed rams and launched an assault on the walls. But after a drawn-out battle and significant losses, the remnants breached the gate and entered the keep. A final chaotic melee battle erupted. Ancients and remnants clashed in the courtyards. Arrows rained down, shield walls formed and shattered, and soldiers fell in droves. At last, the last ancient keep fell. The remnants had won. Thus ended the First War of Anvil Empires, an unforgettable pre-alpha battle now etched into the game's history. Well done to the remnants for winning the First War of Anvil Empires, and GG's to all the players that played during this test. Remember that Anvil Empires is still in the pre-alpha stages, and it's still under development. I suspect we will see a lot of changes to come this year. I think these types of combat tests will be interesting once they unlock the third faction for us. What are you looking forward to with Anvil Empires? Let me know in the comments. Thank you Wicca for providing the information about this war, and for any other players that sent reports or information as well. For historical records, here's most of the clans that were involved in this test. I think it'll be interesting when the game comes out to look back on this war. I look forward to fighting in more wars like this soon. If you would like to join tests like these, join the Anvil Empires Discord. I will leave a link in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching and for your support. Make sure to subscribe for more Anvil Empires content. I'll see you out on the battlefield. Cheers.